welcome. Thanks for coming, everybody. I'm Kim Ball. I'm the events chair and vice chair of this celebration, which is coming to the end, a few months away. I'm going to tell you a few things that we have coming up, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mitch, who will serve as our moderator tonight. This Saturday we have Caressing Steel, which is a Rush tribute band playing at the backseat event center. 3 of those members of that band are Handley alums. Next Saturday, Apple Blossom Saturday, Handley will have a float in the Grand Feature Parade, thanks to the art students and technology students and carpentry students at Handley in the Innovation Center, and Mitch Hoopes and his colleagues up there. So that'll be exciting. I think we're going to be near the front of the parade, right behind the Handley band. So watch for that. On the 9th, which is 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be back in this room and we'll hear from the students of today, kind of the student perspective on the Handley of today. So that'll be the same time, 6:30, for about an hour on May 9th. On May 18th, it's Handley 100th Day in Old Town. We have a lot of events happening that day. There'll be a free concert, again, by an alumni group. Dixie Rhythm, playing 1920s and 30s swing music. I've been told that they have learned the Handley fight song and the Handley alma mater, and we'll play those. And that'll be downtown at the Taylor Pavilion, 1-hour concert. Then we'll be in here that afternoon for a panel in tribute. It's kind of an early Father's Day. Handley grads talking about their fathers who are no longer with us, who were Handley notables. And that'll be in the afternoon of May 18th, and that night is our gala at the George Washington. But also we'll have a tent downtown with balloons. Merchants will have different promotions and things. So there'll be a lot going on on the 18th. Then I'm going to skip ahead to the 14th of June, which is our last event, and that we're calling the finale. That will be all up at the school, starting with the burial of the time capsule around 5:30. Then we'll have a volunteer pizza party, and then in the Patsy Cline Theater we'll have the showing, the world premiere of a new video that is Handley 100 Years of Excellence. So that's being worked on as we speak, and that's about a 40-minute film. Then we'll have a cupcake reception, and then everyone will go out onto the terrace, and you all are the first to know that I believe we're going to have fireworks that night to culminate the whole thing, kind of a countdown to the next century with fireworks, and then the next day we all go home and take a nice nap. I do. So anyway, a couple administrative things. I'm going to pass this microphone up there so you all will have 2 to share among the 5 of you. Mitch is going to use his teacher voice down here without mic. Do use them because we are recording. Usually we try to use the Bluetooth, but we don't have enough of those. So just if you use the regular microphone system, we should be able to capture the audio. And I give props to Christopher March, who's here from the Handley 100 group, and he's going to videotape for us, and this will be on our onehandley.com website, unless you all say something that really should not go on that website. And we will go for about an hour. We'll take questions at the end from audience, and we do have a hard stop to be out by 8 o'clock. Okay, so we'll wrap up by 7:45 to let people gather up and make their way, so we don't keep library staff who have been so wonderful with the use of this facility for the entire year. We don't want to cause them to have to work late. All right, so with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Mitch Hoopes, who could be up there on the panel as a Handley graduate, 96, class of 96, as well as a current Handley teacher. So you may want to give your own impressions, reflections, as well as ask some questions and get the conversation started. I think we'll be kind of informal tonight, and I'll let Mitch introduce the panelists. So yeah, thank you. Oh, and we have little goodie bags for the 5 of you, and you, Christopher. So be sure to grab them on your way out. Okay. Oh, yes, thank you.
Richard, they're behind the photo, so you can see. Yep. All right, great. Hi, everybody. I'm going to try to speak up a little bit in my teacher voice so that they can share the microphones of course. I am... This is why we can't have nice things. I'm also running tech support up here as well. I used to do that a bit before I became a teacher. We'll talk about that. But I am Mitch Hoopes. I am a graduate of Handley High School in 1996. I am now in my 7th year of teaching at Handley. I teach in the New Innovations Center. I teach the drafting and architecture design class as well as electronics 1 and 2. Mostly quickly for me, it's kind of in the blood. My mom spent 30 years working in the school system as a guidance counselor. She had an office at Handley in the guidance department. My dad is a member of the JAA Hall of Fame, even though he was a graduate of Jameswood High School. He was in the JAA for a number of years, served as, I think, secretary and then a senior board member, and was awarded a spot there for his participation. I'm here to talk about a couple of questions, but mostly we're going to get some answers from the board here, and I'd let them introduce themselves. So let's start off here at the front.
I'm Jim Gaynor. I graduated from John Handley High School in 1987. Like Mitch, Handley's kind of been in my blood since I was born. My father taught at Handley for over 30 years. Met my wife at Handley. My 2 kids went to Handley. We haven't had a dog named Judge. So, I think since 1981, I've lived within 3 blocks of the school. So I hold it dear to my heart.
My name is Handley Class. I am a 1991 graduate of Handley High School. I'm the youngest of 4 graduates and a daughter of a graduate, 1936.
56.
56. Oh yeah, 36. Sorry, Mom. It's good. I am in my 16th year of teaching at Handley. It was supposed to be a short-term gig, and here I still am.
My name is Clarissa Kennerly. I graduated from Handley in 1994. All of my brothers also graduated from Handley. My parents did not, but and they didn't teach there either. But I was so happy to come to Handley. This is only my 2nd year there, but it definitely is a great place to be, and I loved going to high school there.
Hi, my name is Joyce Householder. I graduated in 1996 with Mr. Hoopes there. My sister and I were the only ones in our family that went to Handley. My parents were, one was Wood and one was a transplant from Montana. And I've been teaching at Handley for 8 years, out of my 10 years for WPS.
My name is Luis Ramirez Barron. I graduated from class of 2009. I'm the first high school, or the first member of my family, immediate family, to graduate from high school. John Handley, of course, college as well, and I consider myself pretty fortunate and proud to be here.
I'd also like to point out that Clarissa is also our Teacher of the Year this year. Thank you. All right. So to start off with, I guess, the first thing is, what are the benefits of being an alumnus teacher?
Well, for me, I've been there for 30 years, so a lot of the kids that I'm teaching now, I talk to parents, so they kind of understand how my class goes, good, bad, and I've made a lot of close relationships with students and their parents throughout the years, so I found out that the longer you're there, it gets a little bit easier just because it's a smaller community, and it makes my job a little bit easier knowing who I'm dealing with and so forth.
Are we going in order?
Let's go in order.
You always go first here.
We'll switch it up next time. That's right, it's not a lot of pressure.
It is the pressure. Benefits of going to and now teaching at, was that your question, Mr. Hoopes? Yes.
Use that microphone. Use that microphone.
I think like Gaynor said, it's the community. You get to know the families. I have, kids of friends that I went to high school with, and just being here and living here, I live a couple blocks from Handley too, so it gives you the opportunity to get to know your families and your children on outside of the classroom. Walking down Valley Avenue, they're yelling and waving and, hey, why were you walking your dog so late last night? So it's like they always know it's a grocery store. You can't go anywhere. And being, from here and growing up here and having, brothers and sisters and, parents that were in the community, it still feels small. It's not what it was growing up here, but it definitely still feels small and quaint and safe.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of the students that I teach, I'm friends with their parents. I grew up with their parents. So I kind of have that extra edge where I can say, I know your parents, so you better behave yourself. And it also, because you grow up and you have that Handley pride, and then you bring it back when you're teaching there, it's kind of a surreal experience for me.
I like the small community feel of being at Handley and also knowing people from the community.
For me, it's shared experiences, having some of the same teachers, Mike McKernan, Mr. McKernan, Mr. Gaynor, all these teachers that were there, or some of them that were there when I was there, same teachers. So, and I'm currently relating to my students just by asking them. And when I was in school, you always go back and talk to them about the things that we were experiencing and they're currently experiencing. A lot of it really is the same. Not too much has changed, in my opinion.
Well, Handley has gone through a number of renovations throughout the years. I know I personally work now at the Innovation Center, which didn't exist as part of Handley until just about 3 years ago. That's been a major change, and I love working up there because before that we were in the basement of Handley. Have you all been through some of the renovations, and what have you seen change for the better or worse? We'll start at the end maybe this time.
Yeah, so in 2005, I went into
During the renovation?
Yeah, exactly.
You had trailers?
Right, yep, my freshman year, that's when it all started. And so I don't even know what the building looked like prior. Certain sections of the building were off limits, and the renovation had started. And as Mr. Hoopes said, yeah, I was part of the trailer group that freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year, I didn't even get to see the school being fully completed or renovated. Yeah, the track was just beginning its renovation. So when we walked down those steps, we were the first class, essentially, with after the renovation. But I don't know if it was the first true class because the renovation hadn't completely finished up. The turf was brand new; you could still smell it.
Surprised they let you on it.
Yeah, we were very surprised, very fortunate and lucky. But what was the original question?
Just how it's changed architecturally and some of the things.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, right. Aside from the trailers and whatnot, I remember the building being a lot of carpet, and seeing it transition into more hardwood, right? That was it was an interesting experience. Also, a lot more light was let in, I guess, after the renovation. I remember kind of being a little bit, like, specifically the commons It was just all carpeted and confined, whereas after the renovation, a lot more light is let in and nothing gets.
They opened up the second floor.
Second floor, right. But those are the parts that I was able to see. I wasn't able to see farther past the wooden hallway or past the commons. Again, it was sectioned off, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I actually substitute taught during the renovations. So I saw that they had moved the library, opened it up, lit it up, and you can see the brick walls in the classrooms now. Because my classroom last year had the brick walls in it, and just more light into the building overall.
I wasn't there during the renovations, but I can tell you that last year when I came, I was totally lost. I didn't know where I was going and what I was doing. I mean, the cafeteria was still in the same place. I was able to make it there my first day, but I was like, what in the world? This place is completely different.
And now you're at the Innovation Center.
And now I'm at the Innovation Center, yeah.
My first year was the year after the renovations were complete, so I didn't get to live through that process, thank goodness, because with the science classroom, that would have been a lot of things to do. Although you have a lot of things, Mr. Gainer, in your classroom. But I did, when I joined the staff, Mr. Gowdy gave me a tour, because I was like, I don't know, where was Gloucester? Wasn't Gloucester down this like thing, and he had this weird room, and I was like, where was all this? So he lovingly walked me around and showed me where everything used to be. And then I got to do the same thing for when my class had a reunion. I was SGA sponsor, so we were responsible for giving tours to reunion classes. So I got to take my friends around and give them the same tour that Mr. Gowdy gave me and explain. And it was a lot of fun to talk about like what this used to be and where this used to be and why this isn't here anymore. So it was a good time.
I'm actually going to go back to the renovation of the late 70s, early 80s, because my dad was teaching at Handley at the time, and he had a 12-month contract. So he took me with him to Handley over the summers when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. And for me, a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, whatever I was, to go to Handley when they were renovating it, that was my Disney World. I played all day long inside that school. I got to know that school so well that still today, if it's my planning period and I don't want to be found, you're not going to find me, because I know all the nooks and crannies and all the private places to be. That's when I first really got to know the school and the pride itself. I'll talk about Mr. Hoopes real quickly, because whenever he found me on the football field, he kicked me off, and then I would somehow end up in the gymnasium climbing the bleachers. Once again, Mr. Hoopes would kick me off. Wherever I was, Mr. Hoopes was kicking me out of this, out of the other. If it wasn't Mr. Hoopes, it was the maintenance guys, the guys that were building the school. But for me, it was an amazing couple summers just to go there during that experience. And then to be a teacher when they were renovating it, we were blessed. George Glossner signed the history department to stay in the trailers the entire time. And for those 3 or 4 years I was in the trailers, I really grew up as a teacher, because you didn't have to worry about anything. You were the principal, you were the janitor, you were the teacher. No one came to the trailers. Wow. And you got to do your own thing. And I mean, they had bathrooms in the trailers. It was a great experience. And I do remember, after 3 years being in the trailers, they said the school's ready to open. Mr. Glossner gave me a great room, and I didn't wait for the maintenance guys. I took my class and I said, we're moving these desks right now. As soon as I get the okay, we're gonna move right into my room. So I've loved both renovations that I've been able to go through Handley with.
Yeah.
Would you mind if they tell us what subjects you teach and what grade levels?
I teach U.S. history for the last 20 years. I started U.S. history and world history, but I've enjoyed the U.S. history part a lot more over the last 30-some years, and they're juniors.
I teach primarily chemistry, but I've taught biology, ecology, environmental science, and it depends. I have anywhere from freshmen to seniors. It's just how the cookie crumbles in their scheduling.
I teach 11th and 12th graders, and I teach English.
I teach English as a second language, and I co-teach with our English department primarily, 9th through 12th grade.
9th and 10th grade, health and PE, also driver's ed.
And I teach at the Innovation Center. It's all grades, all levels, all like that. So we get them all. And we love them all, don't we? That's right. If you don't know about the Innovation Center, it's actually this new style of teaching where the kids actually get their lessons and they're able to go out into the Innovation Center and kind of work and find their own little nook and where they're not stuck in a classroom and stuck in a desk. Those of us that work up there, we really love it. We'd love for y'all to come and join us sometimes. On a personal note, I actually have a couple of memories about the renovation. When I was at Handley, what's now the senior cafeteria, one of these spaces that's been opened up to the sunlight, actually used to be classrooms. And it was 2 on one side and 2 on the other, and it was keyboarding, which was also typewriting at the time. And after high school, when I was in college, I got a job in the IT department here at Winchester Public Schools. At that time, the whole IT department consisted of 2 people. The main director and the technician. And me and Josh Full were hired as the 2 first interns to double it. And in the next 4 years, they got to like 8 people because computers were just taking off. But we were given the task of actually running computer wires from the history rooms over that hallway into what was the typing rooms because it was going to be upgraded for computers. So over the summer, we ran 50 cables. And then when I came back 10 years later, they ripped it all out to open up the renovation space, and all of that's now gone. But the holes we put through the brick walls are still there. Since we're talking about being a student, talk about being a student in the past and being a teacher now. So we start in the middle this time, Clarissa.
Sure. I think that when I was a student at Handley, I definitely grew up a lot there. I matured a lot there. I learned a lot about myself there. I had great teachers. And I guess a lot of you guys know Mr. Dixon. He really forced me to do better than what I thought I could do. And so, you know, when I think about my time there, I think about a time of growth and just figuring out who I was and who I was going to be. And so being a teacher there now, it's, you know, you see those students who need that same push to figure out, you know, who they want to be. And so it's kind of, like I said earlier, it's kind of surreal to be in that position now, because I remember so fondly when I was being pushed, and now it is, you know, my goal to push my students as well.
One of my inspiring teachers was Mr. Lawrence, our band director, who encouraged me to go for what I wanted, whether it was solos or just to do well in school. And of course, Miss Beebe, my homeroom teacher and class sponsor. And just the impact of the teachers there encouraged me to come back and want to share that with students.
Yeah, I would say not only Handley, but the years that I was going, my schooling through WPS, elementary, middle, and high school, those teachers were just the golden standard. I can't think of one teacher that was really somebody I could point out and say, oh, that was a bad teacher. I think that collectively they were just very high level tier of teaching, and again, we talked about Dixon, we talked about Glossner, we talked about all these iconic teachers, Mr. McKernan, Mr. Gowdy, the list goes, it's incredible. And those really motivated me and inspired me to become a teacher myself.
That's a tough question. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. Academics wasn't my jam. I wouldn't say I was the best student. I participated, I was sports, I was friends, I was things. But there were teachers there that definitely pushed me when I didn't want to be pushed. Glossner, Wolfgang Schmeller, Brathwaite, Doran, which were French teachers. You know, they just saw me where I was and met me where I was. And I think because I wasn't the strongest student, I think that helps me in the classroom today because I can identify. You know, I'm still not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I worked hard, and I learned to work hard. Well, it's really not that hard. Yeah, it's really not that hard. Like for me, it's harder than chemistry, but there were those, and I didn't intend to become a teacher. I kind of fell into it accidentally, like I said earlier. So I look back, and then I had, the pleasure of being with Gloucester. And I would never put myself on the same level as him, but to have him to go to and as a resource was just, made my life a lot easier.
I'll say the same thing as Holly there. I wasn't the strongest student. I did have a great time at Handley. My father would probably say too at the time. One of the negatives about that is my father knew everything that I tried to get away with every weekend because he was working at the same school. But my first interaction with any teacher at Winchester Public Schools, I moved November 14th, 1980 to Daniel Morgan in the 6th grade, and the guidance department decided the very first class I should be in is PE with Coach Dixon. And so that was kind of an intimidating thing for me to go from recess in elementary school one day and then the very next Monday being told by Coach Dixon to get undressed with all these 8th graders that I was in the locker room with. But that's a story for a different day. While I was at Handley, I would say the same thing. I had so many teachers, but the one thing that all these teachers had in common is all the ones you talked about, they made a career of teaching at Handley. They were there for 30 years. All the teachers. I never actually had Mr. Gloucester, but we became very close friends when I started teaching at Handley. Mr. Gowdy was one of my history teachers. He could tell a story about a homeroom incident one time. He still has a scar on my finger. I had Mr. Uthman. Mr. Uthman kind of took me under his wing early on, and then the coaches. The reason I coached for 32 years is Coach Linden asked me, after I graduated, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I majored in business economics because I thought I was going to make a lot of money. Coach Linden asked me if I was interested in coaching football for a year. So I said, yeah, I'll step up to that. 32 years later, I was still coaching, but it did get me back into the school system. I started subbing. I met Miss BB. I decided I was going to go back to Shenandoah, get my teaching certificate, and try to live up to a lot of the teachers you guys talked about. I'm sure there's a lot of other teachers. Coach Carpenter, I see him as like a second father to me. Coach Leonard really pushed me to go into the teaching thing. So they were all very influential to me in my decision to stay at Handley and work there.
That's great. Of course, I have my own Coach Dixon story. We all do. I had the benefit of having Coach Dixon as a varsity basketball coach for 2 years. And back then, they could throw the balls at you, they could bump you, knock you down, and it made you a stronger person, right? That's what we did. So I loved it so much, I did it for 2 years. When I was down at Handley, actually nowadays, I teach in the technology department. And as you can probably imagine, back in the 90s, there wasn't a whole lot of technology going around. I took a drafting class, and it was all paper and pencil. There were no computers at that point. Later, when I became an IT intern in 97, 98, was when we were putting a computer in every classroom, which is why they actually needed IT interns at that time. Before that, some teachers did have computers. There were computer labs around schools, and a few teachers had, or were lucky enough to have computers, or what were maybe just word processors at the time in their classroom. I'll point out Ms. Foltz here in the audience, who was my 9th grade homeroom teacher. She was lucky enough to have a computer and let me play on it. And I actually still remember that because I've done computers basically since then. I don't want to mention what year that was, but we'll just say it was a while ago. The best part is now I actually teach the same drafting class that I once took back in the 90s at Handley. Of course, now I have a whole computer lab in my classroom. My classroom is a computer lab. And that's one of the best things I love nowadays is that I have access to all this new technology, and my classes are the ones that get to play with it. We're actually just got some VR headsets that we're hoping to authorize, and they'll be able to be used in all of your topics. chemistry, you can see each atom in VR, and of course history projects, English projects. So that'll be some more technology stuff that we'll be offering, hopefully in the future, which is stuff that just wasn't there when I was there. And that's stuff I love there, really I love. How about some culture shifts? We've talked a lot about teachers and students. Has the culture changed at all since you've all been there? Maybe a lot different in the 80s and 90s, more so than today? Or principals, how things were managed back then? Remember? Discipline issues? Any funny stories you might have of being a student that you'd like to share publicly?
Well, I'll say this, because I'm very honest. I'm a very honest person, so I will say, we've had changes in administration over the years. Doug Joyner left, gosh, how long ago was that? And I mean, there's a lot to be said for a hometown, to have our school run by someone who understands and grew up in the community, because this is a very special place. Winchester's special, Handley High School is special, Winchester Public Schools is special. We're unique, it's not like this everywhere else. Lois and I were talking about this a second ago before we started. And so sometimes outside influence is good, but it's also nice to have people who understand and who value the Handley pride and who are willing to take that first in their thought process. And I think we've had some folks that had their own agenda, and Handley pride was not at the top of their list. And so I think that really set us back. But I think we're coming back. I mean, Handley pride it's a thing, and I think our students don't actually get it yet, the ones that are currently here. But hopefully we can keep rolling down the road that we're on, and we will. We'll see it again. We'll see what Handley pride really is. Like it was for
Did you have the
us.
Handley pride back when you were
Yeah, like we did, and it was a community, and it was we're lacking. And I think some of it has to do with our leadership, and some of it I think just it's society too. But that's a lot to go into.
Right? Getting better about it?
100%, much better.
Much better.
I'll kind of piggyback on that real quick too. We've already kind of talked about it. I think one thing that is missing is we don't have the people that stay at Handley for their entire careers. So you get all new teachers, administrators, and I don't think they really appreciate the time and blood, sweat, and tears people have put into Handley, and they have their own agenda at times, or they want to try something new. But a lot of times what they are trying new has already been tried. So I think that aspect, going back to teachers staying, administrators staying, has been kind of a problem where Handley pride isn't where I would say it once was, but we're working on it. And hopefully we're going in the right direction, but I wish we could go back to a time where there was a time when there was a waiting list to teach at Handley. I mean, you can't be in awe when you see the school. And I think that automatically, I don't care who you are, you gotta have a little bit of pride in seeing that school, because there's no other school in the country that looks like that. And we're going in that right direction, but I wish we could start, like I said, appreciate a lot of the time and effort that other people have put in to kind of get their opinions as well.
Well, on diversity, so as an ESL teacher, when we were in high school, there was one ESL teacher, Mr. Pantona.
Yes.
And there was very few Latino students. And now, I'm one of 7 ESL teachers in our area. So the population has grown immensely since then.
Yeah, I'm bilingual, and what she's saying is true. The students share with me that bilingual in Spanish and English, of course. They share that I think that there's the language barrier is so great that they're just coming to school, and we all understand that they're dealing with things at home, outside of the building, that is very challenging for just anyone. So that for them to come to school and just focus on, Handley pride, it's not always the thing that's on their focus. They're just kids, and So I think that's a great challenge for us collectively as teachers, community, to get that message across. But I do my best to try to communicate that to them, try to teach them, communicate to them in a patient manner what it means to do these certain things, and take pride in this stuff. Not just a Handley pride, but take pride in coming to school, care about your teachers and what they're trying to, the expectation that they're holding for them. And I think there are some that do start to recognize that and start to see, like that slow transition of, this is a place that they're proud to go to school and live and continue that with and share that with other people.
I'll pass that to Joyce with the question, what advice would you give to the students? Maybe to get them more interested in coming to school or being more engaged?
I think they need to join more teams, and teachers need to encourage them to be part of more clubs that will help them to learn more about Handley Pride. Also, Winchester is now a refugee settlement city, and so now we're beginning to get other languages such as Pashto and Dari and students from Afghanistan.
I believe there's over 30 languages spoken with students in Handley, actually. To put that in perspective. To what it was, when we were there.
I will say real quick, to end on a positive note, that question, it didn't matter if I was at school in the 1980s or now. It is kind of unique to go, to the senior cafeteria, last year, but to go to the senior cafeteria or to the cafeteria, you see a lot of times kids, maybe you're from the top of the social economic ladder or the bottom, and they're all interacting. I think it's a great representation of America. I think a lot of schools, you don't see that, and I'm glad that I went to school. My wife obviously teaches there, but kids went there because it helped them later on in life get along with all types of people. So I think that's another really unique thing about Handley in that sense. It is so multicultural, and it does benefit you later in life.
I'd agree. I try to push that on my students. Obviously, we have a very diverse population of students, and you want to reach them. I teach an architecture class. I feel pretty lucky in that I teach at Handley High School, which is constantly awarded the most beautiful public high school in the state of Virginia. And I get to teach the architecture class about that. So I try to convince my kids and show them, like, hey, Handley Pride is one thing, but this is, you're at the most beautiful school. How can you not learn to appreciate that at some point? And they don't always get it right away, but it does seem like as students mature and go through Handley, the more Handley Pride seeps into them and those expectations, they really start to love the school to the point where when you're a senior, and I'm seeing it now, they don't want to leave. They've got a month left, and they're starting to realize their friends are going different places. I'm not going to be able to hang out every weekend. And now it's almost like, oh no, I forgot to do all the fun stuff, and now it's being taken away. So I try to just tell my students, try to enjoy every moment, I realize you can't always realize what you're in when you're in the moment, but just understand that it's a special place, and doing these special things don't happen at every school. And being a part of Handley allows you to have those expectations and experiences. I know I had some great expectations and experiences when I was a student. I have them now as a teacher, and that's why I stick around. Any other advice for students, maybe? Anyone on the panel?
I would just tell them to work hard. I try to lead by example, and show other teachers here on the panel the same way.
Is that your teaching philosophy, perhaps?
I try to lead by example. I show up to work and do the best job I can every day. I'm sure all the other teachers do the same thing. So,
Holly, how about your philosophy?
Pretty much the same. Make the best of the situation that you're in. Try to find the good. That's one of our things, is be the good. Try to find the good, try to be the good. And same, I lead by example. Chemistry's really not that hard, but I wasn't the best student, but I worked hard and I was successful. And if you work hard, you're gonna be successful. So, nose to the grindstone.
I think that, a lot of students, they don't love English class, I'll tell you that. They don't like to read, they don't like to write, but I think that just making the material relatable to them and trying to get them to see that, you know, what we're teaching them, even though they might not see it, even just learning the thought process is gonna help them when they get out of school, when they leave Handley High School. So I just try to get them to relate to what we're talking about, to relate to what, you know, what we're doing in class. And when they relate to it, it seems like then they take it more seriously because it becomes a part of who they are.
I try to lead by example as well and encourage them and let them know that school wasn't always easiest for me, right, Mr. Cantor? So I just try to encourage them, and if it's something that I don't know, I search out a teacher that does know and send the student to them, especially with math. It's a foreign language to me.
So one of the things that I learned and experienced as a student at Handley was the expectation that, thinking of my toughest teachers, Glossner, Dixon, they never lowered the bar for anyone. And that is something that I, as a teacher, have basically have inherited. And it's tough. It's really, really hard. But I can't lower the bar regardless of the situation, and I do my best to work extra hard to try to get all of my students to meet that expectation, be able to cross that bar. And I think that is a lesson that I have learned through, again, previous teachers that has carried me a long way, and something that will probably carry me through the rest of my life. So that is something that I try to have my students go through as well.
And as a teacher myself, I have the same thing. I teach drafting. A lot of people aren't good with math, and sometimes drafting is geometry. I have students that don't always get it. I'm not gonna fail kids though, just because they don't get it. It's all about effort and about trying your best and putting forth that effort. And for the kids that put forth the effort and try, they're the ones that usually get the best grades. It seems to be a pretty common theme amongst all the teachers. I also want to say that one of the best things about teaching at Handley is the teachers. We all teach independent subjects for the most part, but we can always rely on each other to help out with things. Setting students, even on Saturday schools, teachers stick around. And I think a lot of times with the turnover with the admins, there are teachers that are here for 10, 20, 30 years, and they're almost like the bedrocks. We might have new admins every 5 or so years, but if it's the same teachers all the time, it's the same Handley pride. And they're the ones that kind of are emanating that. You've heard the same names over and over tonight, Mr. Glossner, Mr. Dixon, so on and so forth. These are teachers that were there 30 plus years and influenced not just a generation, but in some cases, multiple generations of family and kids that all grew up right here in Winchester. And I think that's one of the best parts of Handley, is that we have that nice core group of, a lot of times, former Handley people who have come back and just love it so much that that's why they stick around. Also, I live a block from school, and I can walk to school and walk home from lunch sometimes, so that's pretty unique as well. So I really enjoy that too. So that's one of the things that I find keeps me going back as well. Any last comments you guys want to talk about before we open it up to questions? Advices or thoughts, shout outs to former teachers you want to give? Or? Yeah, but that's true. I do want to just point out real quick that some of these teachers, I believe, you've heard them be very modest here tonight and talk about how they can never live up to these people that help them. Well, these are the teachers that are now helping the next people. So a lot of these people up here are those standards now. You know, Handley doesn't have Mount Rushmore of 5 teachers just because we have decades of great teachers. And hopefully some of these people up here are in that next grouping of wonderful teachers that we have at Handley. Right? Even if you don't think so, I think they all do. Great. Can we give them some applause? So how about some questions? Anybody from the audience or stories? Yeah.
We've touched on this a little bit, but how do you think today's students or their lives have changed since the time when you were in school? I mean, what challenges do they face that maybe you all didn't face as students?
It's technology.
Yeah.
It's technology. Is the biggest. I need to speak for this. Yeah, it's
sound
technology for sure. Phones, and just the instant gratification that technology allows. I mean, of course, it's great, but it's a distraction in the classroom for sure. Probably the largest issue is with technology is the distraction.
Yeah, cell phones have always been a problem. I've addressed that the last couple of years by having them have a phone tree, and that's how I take roll. If their phone's not in the phone tree, then I mark them absent, and they get a message from their parent that they're not in school. So it's worked great, my phone tree the last couple of years, but I thought of another story when you were talking about the internet. I think the internet can be great, endless amounts of information, but it can also, I think social media could be the toilet bowl of the internet. I think the kids are always on social media way too much. But I will share one internet story, because you were talking about hooking the class. I thought I was like on top of the world when the internet came out. I think there was a search engine called Pig Search. And I still have an overhead projector and I still use it, but before the internet, that's everything I had were just my overheads. But I thought I was going to be, way ahead of the curve and start bringing out these pictures from the internet. And that's the first time I realized how bad the internet could be, because we were talking about World War II and the two bombs that we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So I pig searched before Google Fat Man and Little Boy, which were the two bombs, and the plane Enola Gay. And that's the first time all this stuff came back on the internet that was nothing to do with the plane or the two bombs. And that's when I realized for the first time the internet's not such a great, it can be a great thing, but there's a lot of other things on the internet that kids should not be having access to. Now today we do have the filters and everything. You can't get the same information that you could. I think this was like 1999, it might have been like 1999, the very first time we had the internet in my classroom. But I think the internet, cell phones, computers, I know there's a big push for computers in the classroom, but for me it's just another distraction for the kids. If they have the opportunity to be on the computer or listen to me, they're probably going to find something to do on the computer. So I don't bring computers into my classroom. It's still a lot of lecture. I do have a smart board, and a lot of things are on the computer, but I try to stay away from, when I say my computer, not their computer, I try to keep them off the computer and off the cell phones. I think that's, like we said, one of the biggest distractions.
I also think that social media complicates their lives a little bit more as well. I mean, when we were at school, you talk to someone you know didn't get along with, it stayed at school, but now it's sent to like everyone in the whole entire school knows about it. Pictures are being sent. If someone bullies you, they can do it online as well. And so I think that you know, the anxiety that comes along with that and the pressure that comes along with that distracts the students a lot in the classroom, because they're so focused on what is happening on social media, who said what, you know, what's happening down in Handley, so on and so forth, that you know, I think that the stress level and the anxiety level for them is much more than, you know, when we were in school.
What's the latest tea?
Okay, so besides social media and technology and phones, another impact on my students, at least, are more and more of the students that are coming from other countries are working. Just the other day, one of the students had an hour of sleep and then came to school because he works at Home Depot warehouse. So a lot of students are working more hours and then they don't put their all into school. And when they do, they're exhausted.
Yeah, everything is true. We hear from all these different students and whatnot. continuing on with the technology. Also, everything is just instantaneous. Marking a kid present, marking him tardy, marking him absent. Parents know. I get 3 emails or people calling me up asking me, is so-and-so there, this and that. So it's a lot of stress on the student. It could also be a stressor on the teacher. I don't remember my teachers being ever worried about the attendance so much. So again, everything, a lot of good, but a lot of things that are just really stressing a lot of us out a lot.
I feel like a lot of the issues are the same throughout the decades. I mean, there's always been smoking in schools. But it's just more now. There's always been gossip, but it's just more now. There's always been the need to be cool, but it's just more now because there's more sites, there's more posting, and there's just more pressure overall. To put a spin on the technology for good, I'll take that under my wing. I get to cheat a little bit. I don't think all the teachers like me, per se, but I do use my phones in my classroom because we're trying to teach students proper use of cell phones. So some of my objects, we actually have projects where you can Bluetooth to a robot, and you can use your cell phone to control a robot. And so we do that in class sometimes. Now, trying to get them to stop listening to YouTube at the same time they do it, that's the other challenge. But for me, I work in the CTE department, Career Technology Education. We're trying to show them, hey, if you get a job, you can't be on your phone the whole time, or you lose your job. I have students that have taken internship positions where the companies have said, hey, we really like this person, but he hasn't gotten his training done because he's been on his phone too much. And you actually have to go to the student and say, hey, look, this is real world. We're not just in a classroom anymore. If you want money and you want to go out and buy stuff on the weekends, you're going to have to get a job and maintain a job. Luckily, these are things that they get to learn while they're still in high school before they get out of the workplace. But it's the latest issue, and these companies say that kids can't put their phones down even when they're at job home work. And I don't know if they're going to need cell phone trees at the job.
I think they actually, 90% of my students like that break just to get off the phone.
Yeah.
During the class, I'll take a break and they're like,
They get
it's
time.
warm, it's warm, but
I keep a cell phone tree. It's just pouches. I use mine as a cell phone jail. It's, if you're going to get in trouble, I'm going to take your phone away, and then you're not going to be able to do your work or talk with your friends. And then it's either that way for all class, maybe all week if it's so bad, luckily I haven't had that. But that threat of losing their phone for 10 minutes is usually enough to get them to sit down and pay attention to do something. And so I tend to use it as more of a carrot at the end of the stick than anything. Any other questions? In the back?
How's artificial intelligence and ChatGPT and technology application, how's it going to change what you do and how you do it and what you worry about there?
Let's start with the English teacher.
We have now on our grading on Canvas, we have something that we can use, copy link, so that we can see whether or not the kids are using ChatGPT, and then they can see it as well. Like, it'll turn blue or green or red, so that they'll see how much percentage of their paper is actually plagiarized, and so they know that we know. But we're actually working on something in the English department so that the students can see how they can use ChatGPT for good, how they can use it to help them to generate ideas instead of using it to do their work for them. So we're working on a scale in which we can say to them, okay, this is a 0 ChatGPT assignment, this is a 0 AI assignment, you are not allowed to use it. Or if it's, a level 1, okay, you can use it for brainstorming only. That's the only time that you can use it. So we're trying to work with it, because if not, students are just gonna use it for everything.
Anybody else want to speak on AI?
I still use paper and
Paper and pencil is an easy way to get around it. I teach technology. I'm glad I don't teach an English topic because, as you said, if it's easy to do, the kids are going to use it. That's not to say that we don't use it in the real world. I use ChatGPT to come up with some questions tonight. They were the same ones that were kind of sent to me before, but it is interesting to get a third-party opinion on something. Or even, as they pointed out, it's a good way to start a project. I know a lot of teachers will do a slideshow presentation by using ChatGPT. And instead of spending 2 hours putting slides together, it's a 10-minute project. So in those ways, it's great. It's the whole work smarter, not harder technique. Hopefully we can teach those kids the proper benefits as well. But just like everything else, it's just gonna be a battle. It's just back and forth. You show them, they learn, and they'll eventually learn. And hopefully it's for the good. But like as they say, the cat's out of the bag. I mean, there's AI for writing assignments, there's AI for photography, there's AI for video. I do hands-on projects, and the kids have to take a picture of it and turn it in. So there's no way an AI can really do that, and that's how I kind of get around it. But I see them all the time when we're in the hallways helping out kids. Simple things like poems, they'll just type in real quick. Like, you could really just come up with it on your own faster than it would take you to figure out whether it's ChatGPT or not. So it's a learning expectation for them that I think they have to get through. Anyone else?
Anybody have Linda March in marketing or any good stories? Linda March.
Says Chris March.
Well, she worked with my father for 20 years, so I've got a lot of stories. She was kind of like my second mom at Handley. If there was something going on and it involved my father and I, she was always kind of the mediator on that. And I knew I could always go to her to calm my father down, talk to her before I talked to him. So she was a great help for me when I was at school, even before I went to Handley. So I really appreciate her. Always like seeing her.
Anybody else? Questions, comments, stories about maybe when they went to Handley?
So what do you think, what can the community do to support you in your roles? I mean, other than the obvious, paychecks and things like that. But, I mean, how can Winchester better support, Handley teachers?
Yeah, the easiest example would be for me, at the Innovation Center, we actually directly involve the community in a lot of our projects. Last time we had the spring showcase, which opened up the community members to come in. A lot of the community members donated money to actually build the Innovation Center. We have kids that go on internships and job shadowing projects with local community businesses. All of the ones we talk to are always interested in getting kids on there just to get them experience. We've had roofing companies come in looking for students where they'll give a presentation. Last week I had the solar farm that's being built down outside of Stephen City. They came in and gave a presentation to the kids, and they were interested. If there were any kids interested in construction that might want to get a job down there on their site. So a lot of that community involvement is definitely happening at the Innovation Center, where we're trying to get these kids these career jobs and experiences at the same time as learning hands-on stuff they can at the same time.
Another thing is support. Yeah, the students love the support from the community, the theater, plays, athletic events. They really do appreciate everybody coming out to watch them play. Anything that they're worked on, but also the teachers are behind that as well. So the more community support there is, the more they appreciate, because it's a lot of work. It takes time, not only for the students, but also the teachers, and the teachers are having to do everything during the normal hours, but to spend extra time going to these events. Really, it's just support, I really believe.
You can sign up to substitute.
Or walk the halls and be a student monitor. We've
Or
all
drive buses.
definitely drive buses.
Bus drivers, yes.
I think we receive a text message every morning about a bus being late.
Yeah.
Bus drivers.
Anybody else? Questions? I'll put in a plug here. Next week is the Apple Blossom Parade, and CTE department built the Handley float. Come check it out. Mr. Joyner is going to be Judge Handley. Mrs. Bradford, the principal, is going to be on the float. Marie Emo from the school board is going to be on the float. And Mr. Keller, as Teacher of the Year, is going to be on the float for the front of it. So, and exactly, state teacher of the year. Our own teacher of the year here on the panel. We're hoping we can go back to back maybe this year. Okay, well, if nobody has any other questions, I guess we'll draw this event to a close. It's a gathering. Thank you all very much for coming out.
Thank you all.
I would leave it like you found it.
I wanna leave it better than I found it.
Or leave it better.
Yeah.